Okay, you may go ahead and call the roll. Commissioner Hopkins.
Wait a
Here?
minute, haven't opened
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
meeting yet.
I'm sorry, I thought you did.
Clerk, you're getting off to a fast start this year.
I think it's the microphone. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of reverb.
All right. The Caddo Parish Commission work session for January 3rd, 2024 at 10 o'clock is now called to order. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Burrell.
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Blake. Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Present.
Okay, you have 8 of 12 members present. That does constitute a quorum.
Okay, today our invocation will be done by Commissioner Ken Epperson and our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner John Paul Young. Please stand.
Let us all bow and go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for 2023. We thank you for allowing us to transition into 2024. As we reflect back on 2023, at the end of the year of ceremonies representing the birth of our Christ Jesus, we would like for us to continue to the benevolence that we start not only for Christmas, but throughout the other 364 days of the year. Father, we thank you for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon Caddo Parish, the state of Louisiana, and the United States of America. And we also ask that world peace would go out throughout the world. These and other blessings we ask in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Face the flag, render the appropriate salute for you. Please keep in mind our POWs and those missing action, and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Epperson and Commissioner John Paul Young. Mr. Clerk.
Okay. Yes, we do have 2 potential agenda additions today. The first item is the potential agenda addition, advancing a presentation of a special resolution to Dr. Joe Gant. This is a resolution you had previously passed, but we're scheduling a presentation at a later date. That date has been confirmed for tomorrow at 3:30. And the next item is a potential agenda addition, advancing an action item, authorizing the administration to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Brandon House. This is a response to a recommendation that comes from the Juvenile Services Committee. And I apologize, it is noted as being added by Commissioner Jackson, but that should reflect Juvenile Services Committee. So apologies, that was just a clerical error.
Okay. Floor is open for this public hearing. Anyone who would like to come up and speak for or against can do it at this time. State your name for the records, please.
Good morning. John Glover, 9100 Walker Road, apartment 217, Shreveport 71118. Looking to the potential of adding this number 2 to the agenda, I wanted to know what was Brandon House, because I've never heard of Brandon House before. Doesn't mean it's not a good project, it just means that me, a citizen, has never heard of it. Then 2, what is it that we're looking for the commission to support in this endeavor? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we can vote. No, we got to close this. Is there anyone else? If not, this public hearing is closed. Now can I have a motion by Commissioner Young and seconded by Commissioner Stephen Jackson. We can vote. Oh, you want to speak on it? Oh, Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you. Before voting to add this item to the agenda, I also would like to have a better understanding of what's being requested regarding the Brandon House. Is now the appropriate time to discuss that, or would we discuss it in the...
We could discuss it when it's placed on the agenda, or we could talk about it now.
Well, I'm not clear. Would it be appropriate to do it now or later? I prefer
On the
to answer
agenda.
that question.
Once it's on the agenda.
I'm sorry?
On the
Okay,
agenda.
will it be on the
We can
agenda?
discuss it on the agenda.
Okay, Commissioner Stephen Jackson?
I'll wait till.
Okay. All right, we can vote.
Okay, and that motion carries with 10 in support, none in opposition. So those items will be added at the end of section 11, which is your new business, and those will become items number, that's a long section, excuse me, it will become items number 26 and 27. And that brings us now to citizens' comments, where citizens who wish to address the commission on any issue other than zoning are asked to fill out a comment card located in the chamber foyer and return that to the president or the clerk. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and we have received one comment at this point in time. The box to my left is available if there are additional comments, but the request for comment we've received has been presented to the president.
Okay, we have one citizen comment here from Mr. John Glover. You have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Before do I need to restate my name again for the record?
No, you've
Thank you.
already done.
Before I go into my position with regard to what I wanted to speak to, I wanted to first of all, say Happy New Year to all of you all. Number two, when I come before you all requesting information or even making a statement, that I am not torn apart once I sit down. Because that is not, to me, the intent or purpose of this commission. If I come to you with a situation, an issue or concern, just deal with the concern, not me, the individual. Thank you. Now, moving on to my intent and purpose for standing here. I noticed that when I was going over the work session agenda, that there was an item, matter of fact, 2 items. Item number 11.10 and 11.11. 11.11 was an item that really caused a red flag for me. First of all, it says that we had a project, Lighthouse, that was declined for ARPA funding. I wanted to understand why. What was it that that project did not meet, that the project that was approved as a pilot met? And so, too, because of other language in that legislation, the green infrastructure project, what is that? When was it established? What funding is it or was attached to it? There are so many moving parts to that particular piece of legislation that needs to be clarified for me, a citizen. Now, I'm only speaking on my behalf because I'm the only one that's standing here. But it's important for me to understand that when you all are considering even voting on an issue, that it is indeed plainly written out and that I understand those questions that I just presented to you all. But number 2, item 11.10, how long is that pilot supposed to be? And will it ever become not a pilot, but a true program itself? Do understand the need that you all have required and have noted for that pilot, but understanding that, I just need to know what are you really doing here to make sure that we are indeed met with clarity of any information that you're bringing before us. Thank you.
All right, that is our last citizen's comment. Mr. Clerk.
Okay, that brings us to visitors. And we did have one potential presentation of a special resolution for today, but I believe that we were aware that this guest may be attending tomorrow in lieu of this, so I believe that it's been confirmed that she'll be attending tomorrow and not today.
So we just-
Yes.
Yes, tomorrow.
Okay, we'll just read that on tomorrow.
Great.
Okay,
Okay, that
Clerk.
would bring us then towards reports, where you have an administrative report attached.
Madam Administrator.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We wanted to let you know that we have issued the RFPs for both the opioid and housing. Opioid is due back January 16th, housing is due back February 20th. We have a target date of January 8th to issue the RFP for the traffic cams. Just a reminder, we have a new commission orientation Monday, January 8th. After the swearing in, any commissioners welcome to attend that meeting. We will be sending out the request for legislative priorities. It's that time of year that we'll be getting ready for the legislative session, so we will email you that so you can fill those in and email those back to us. We will be working with our lobbying firm to consolidate that and have a targeted priority list. Just a reminder that Ag Center Luncheon is January 9th. And the numbers for juvenile, we have 11 in detention, 3 are 17-year-old, 5 OJJ, and there are 16 at CCC. That concludes the administration report, and I'll take any questions at this time.
Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Bryant, thank you for the report. Happy New Year. What exactly what services are we requesting in the opioid RFP? That's a mental health, isn't it confined to mental health and?
It's primarily treatment. So when we receive the opioid dollars, the bulk of those dollars have to be used in regards to opioid-related causes, treatment, and some other ancillary items that we could use it for, but it's pretty much we have to use it for that. So we determined that we would issue an RFP to seek proposals in order to help us decide how we would use those funds.
Okay. So we're actually letting the market offer some opportunities, offer some ideas on how we might best use those dollars?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, then, Commissioner Stephen Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Administrator, do you mind running those juvenile numbers again? I think you're a numbers person. You kind of just zip through those.
Yes, sir.
Can tell you do the numbers all the time.
Let me just make sure. All right. So yes, we're at that time where we have 11 in detention, which is a good number for us. And 3 of those are 17-year-olds. 5 of those are OJJ.
So really and truly, do we really have 5 or 6? You said
Yes.
5 were OJJ?
Yes. So 6 are actually
Okay.
our.
That's a good sign. And school is still out. Caddo is still out on break, right? Yep. Interesting. I don't know if you're going to look to see what data or what happened this holiday season that kind of kept us down, but I think this is whatever we did here is definitely a plus. So kudos to everybody involved. This is a good number here. Thank you. Knock on wood. Hopefully it stay that way by Friday, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administrator Bryant, Happy New Year.
Happy New
Could
Year.
you answer for the public the 3 questions that were asked regarding the Community Lighthouse Project? Those questions are, what is the Community Lighthouse Project? When will it become not just a pilot? And what is the Green Infrastructure Project?
So that you want us to answer that now, not when the item on the lighthouse gets on the agenda. You'll have a discussion, but
If you could answer it now, I think
yes,
that would
sir.
be
So the
definitive
lighthouse
for people.
project, you all approved for $500,000 for pilot program in order to put locations for our citizens to go to in the event of a natural disaster where they may lose electricity and or water. When we vetted, we used $250 from ARPA, which came from the green infrastructure, which are various projects that we can use to promote green infrastructure throughout our parish. But we took some funds from there, but they were ARPA dollars. But when we vetted it, there's nothing that is specifically wrong with the project. It's just that because the assets would not be necessarily owned, and Ms. Barnett could correct me if I'm wrong, by the parish, we couldn't use ARPA dollars for that. But there was no opine or opinion on the validity of the project in that regard. And so the parish administration was still committed to those 2 projects that you identified, which was Morning Star and the Highland Center, and we wanted to just be able to use a different funding source as opposed to ARPA. Did I answer everything? Let me know if I missed
If
anything.
I may, it's important to point out that these are solar facilities.
Yes.
Which may or may not be the most cost-effective way to pursue that goal.
Okay. Commissioner?
I think that was everything. Could you also answer the question when it will become not just a pilot? I think the question is perhaps a little confusing, but,
Well,
so we have a
that
third
one
project now that's also on the agenda that's
proposed. Now,
pilot related.
as far as it not being a pilot, that would be up to the organizers of the Lighthouse Project. They would get that data back once these initial locations are open. They would analyze the data to see how well utilized, how effective the program has been, and that, unfortunately, the data comes when you have an issue. So we can't predict when we would have the next major issue, but it tends to be each year we have something. And so when we have that event, then we'll get the data back to show whether or not it's effective. So I would say within the next 6 months, you have the cold season starting. Within the next 6 months, they should be able to gather data that allows them to know, providing that we have a disaster that creates the need for the facility, and providing that it's up and running. We would have to get with those to see when the first one, they've already, I think they're working on the Morningstar location now, and they'll begin, when we iron out the details of Highland Center, they'll start the process on that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. I may add too that, just as a reminder, we've had 2 almost catastrophic events, and that was the hard freeze that we had a few years ago, which lasted almost a week, and then the most recent storms that we had, and many times people, they don't need public or the government until disasters happen, and normally we are Johnny come lately. Johnny come late on issues like this, so hopefully we're doing something proactive this time. Okay, with that, Mr. Clerk.
I'm on the board.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. When we talk about, I guess, bad weather or disastrous weather, if you check the news lately, there's a potential polar vortex that may reach Louisiana within the next couple of weeks. So we might know about this information a lot sooner than later. That's all I have.
Yeah. Again, the Vice President called me over the holidays, I think, and mentioned that email about that potential coming. And again, I just reiterate, we don't, the citizen normally doesn't consider these things until it hits them, and then they want you, Johnny, they want you on the spot. So again, we need to look seriously at this. Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, and if there's no more on administrative report, I don't want to cut anybody off, but that does bring us to commission remarks for communiques, reports, and other items related to the work session agenda. And just as a reminder, they did do some adjusting to the mic volumes, but make sure, just to remind you, the mics that you have in front of you are directional, so try to speak into them, and it should pick up your voice better for the broadcast.
Okay, let me ask you to get on the board. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say one more thing about the Community Lighthouse Project. To answer the question, when will it become not just a pilot, as precisely as I can, the group Community Lighthouse asked us to participate in the funding of 2 pilot projects. We identified a third that we're considering today, and from then it's our understanding that they will use rebates and other parts of financing from their organization and other communities where they do this to make more emergency response sites in Caddo Parish and in our region without our funding. So at that point, it would no longer be a government-sponsored pilot, but would transition to an independent organization doing it on their own. That's the claim that they gave us, and that's what I wanted to make sure that the public was aware of. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to speak to the questions that arose earlier about the Johnny Gray Jones authorization.
Kind of speak up a little bit.
I'm sorry, science is a little bad. Was going to speak about the Johnny Gray Jones facility. Juvenile Services Committee met before. Y'all kind of whispering loud. We met before the break, before Christmas break. We have identified that there is a facility here that is low security, low restriction. That is all that is required of OJJ. Mr. Curtis Nelson also has provided me with information that the facility does not have to be a secure facility. He is the undersecretary. He's the deputy secretary for OJJ. And this is also a place that Judge Reed Casey Jones is comfortable with sending juveniles. We don't anticipate that there'll be more than 2, 3, 4, but this is not a long-term. And as Commissioner Grace Ann Blake always makes the distinction is, there is a detention issue, and then there's more of a intermittent sort of quick, immediate issue. And this is strictly for Caddo Parish Commission Juvenile Court needing a place to send somebody. This is not to address the issues with any crowding at any other facility. This is an issue that stands alone and by itself. So when we get to it, I don't want us to run those issues together as we always do. So, but we made this recommendation to enter into this cooperative endeavor agreement. The funds have already been budgeted, as they are every year, for this particular item. And so this is where those dollars would come from, is the funds that have already been budgeted for. And I think last year we identified that we used less than half the funds. So it's not a huge impact on the budget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. I see no other. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, that brings us to the president's report.
I really don't have a report, but given that this is our first meeting for the New Year's, just want to wish everybody Happy New Year's. And looking forward to the work for this year. There'll be some of you that may be transitioning off. I don't know, for our next meeting, will everybody be coming back?
On Mondays this week,
Yeah, so everybody will still be here on Monday? Okay, well,
We'll be here tomorrow for our final regular session.
Okay, well, I'll keep those remarks for then. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, that brings us, we don't have any old business scheduled for today, so that brings us to new business, where you have a number of items today. At the start are a number of ordinances that you have. And the first one is to consider advancing introduction of ordinance 6403 of 2024. That is an ordinance to amend volume 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the Parish of Caddo as amended, the Caddo Parish Unified Development Code, relative to the creation of new use to allocate storage facility structures and residential districts, as well as identifying how certain non-conforming lots can exist without the need for a variance and otherwise provide with respect thereto. This is a CTAP amendment, so it does affect all districts.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jackson?
Before I keep my motion in place, can you come explain this for me, Mr. Clark? Mr. President, if it pleases the body, I'll make a motion to englobo 11.1, 11.2, 11.3, 11.4, 11.5, 11.6, and 11.7. And while we got Mr. Clark here, he can just run through an explanation on what each of them is, if everybody's okay with that. So we don't have to go back and forth.
Okay.
And we can pull out whatever one we don't want to.
If I may.
Okay, I have a motion and second there. Mr. Clark, welcome. Happy New Year's to you.
This sort of takes us back to the time when we were changing and making the parish ordinance somewhat more rural in character and less restrictive than we have in the city of Shreveport. The first one is we found that out of the parish, there are a lot of tracts of land where citizens want to place accessory structures, garages, storage facilities and so forth, and they want to have the ability to place them in the front yard. The ordinance had prevented them or prohibited accessory buildings from being in the front yard, that being the side yard or the rear yard. So this allows for accessory buildings to be in the front yard. It also addresses non-conforming lots that prior to the UDC were legal. As a result of the UDC, they became non-conforming, but it allows that the uses that are on conforming lots can also be used on these non-conforming lots. Any questions? The next one.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, we want to hold the questions, or you want to direct it while he's there?
Might as well direct it while he's there, so we don't have to go back to it. So you mentioned on the first one that is this only in the rural area, or is this in the 5 mile area that?
Either all we control or all we have any input in is the 5 mile area.
Okay, so I do know that this situation was brought up before in the Cross Lake area, and that there was, in a cul-de-sac, gentleman didn't want to put a storage building in the backyard and feared that it would flood with the lake, and he wanted to put it in the front yard. But in that same cul-de-sac, you got $500,000 houses that the neighbors were basically against putting such a large structure in the front of the house that basically blocks the front view. At this point, I will vote no on this one, even though y'all will have the final say-so on it, because there are different situations that have come about of people wanting to put, like, and there's another situation, I think, in North One Place, in a much smaller neighborhood, that gentleman wants to put a storage facility in the front yard, and we're talking about a regular sized neighborhood with lots of probably about a half acre. And the neighbors have been complaining about that as well. So there's a lot of situations in the suburban area that I know of, but those two come to my mind, that the neighbors just don't want to put a storage facility in front of the house. Does this same storage facility, does it also have to match the exterior of the home?
That's what I was about to share with you, that these accessory buildings have to get final approval by the executive director, and they have to have similar appearances as the primary structure. We basically look at the color of the materials that are being used and make a determination of whether to approve the accessory building or not. The one at the One North Place was in the front yard, and it was a humongous structure that has been removed. And it was being used for commercial purposes. So there were two reasons why it was a problem, but it's been removed. Right. And is in compliance. And we would evaluate the other situation. I remembered off of North Lakeshore, beyond, I'm trying to think of the name of the neighborhood, but where it was, the citizens did rebel against it. And in those cases, we would recommend that one would have a public hearing and go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. There are some, opportunities in the event that someone is doing something that is real obnoxious. But we found that citizens in the rural area did not want to have to apply for a variance for putting just a ordinary storage building in the front yard, and sometimes they do a home occupation. We were just trying to loosen up and respond to all of the comments that we had heard over the months and the year from citizens in the rural area.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it if it was on the side, but not in the front yard. I mean, that's my concern. It's not in the front, but maybe on the side. But like I said, it's up to the body. I know what my vote would be.
And not disagreeing with you, most times, you have isolated occurrences. But in many instances, you have large tracts of land, 2 or 3 acres, and someone wants to put an accessory building in impact to the neighborhood that we isolate. There are some neighborhoods that are affluent that possibly you would not want a accessory building in front yard, but overall in the parish, they really work.
All right. That was the only question I had on that one.
Okay. Let me inject this before we go to the next one. You talk about the 5 mile area, then you talk about the rural. Are we saying now that the 5 mile area, Commissioner Johnson mentioned as suburb versus the rural, which is outside the 5 mile area? Are we adjusting our legislation such that the suburban area would be more like the rural?
Are we talking about in the parish?
Yes, in the parish.
If you will remember, the original Metropolitan Planning Commission was to do development, growth, and zoning within the city of Shreveport and the environs outside of the city of Shreveport up to 5 miles. And when that was resolved, the parish in that area had no master plan or zoning, and the parish contracted with the MPC, but we're restricted to just that area that we have always worked in. We go no further than the 5 mile radius around the city of Shreveport, and it's skipping over Greenwood and Blanchard.
Okay. All right, Commissioner John Paul Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to ask, in the language, it looks like the storage facilities might be businesses, but these are just for the residents' own use. They're not for not for them to store other people's things, where you can like rent a cubby.
Not for other people's storage, but they may have a home occupation.
Sure.
And that was a point of contention for a long time, that we were restricting the building of accessory building to be accessory to a allowed by right home occupation. So
Okay.
that's the extent.
Okay, thank you. And then just to respond to Commissioner Johnson's example, the cul-de-sac where the person wanted to build a storage facility in his backyard, 2 months ago we adopted a new rule.
No, he wanted to build in the front yard. Not
He wanted to build it in his front yard, close to the street, not on the lakeside.
Right.
2 months ago, we adopted a new rule redefining front and backyards for lakefront properties such that the lakeside is the front and the roadside where you access it from is the back, allowing people to have, as of right, storage buildings of whatever character, I believe, in their formerly front yards, now backyards, which are the roadside access. Isn't that
Commissioner.
correct?
Thank you, Commissioner Young. It was another example in the city and in the parish where people that live on the lake want to be able to view the lake, and in most instances, the lake is the rear yard. So they would have to apply for a variance if they wanted to put an accessory building in the front yard and not disrupt the view of the lake in the backyard. And that was why we've been dealing with accessory buildings for a while, because they are concerned by the citizenry. But that we were getting 3 or 4 requests or applications for variances in the rear yard because the people wanted to be able to see the lake. And we just made it all water areas where we did exactly like Commissioner Young said. We just reversed it so that they could have accessory buildings in the front yard, but it really is the backyard. That really is clear as mud, but
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all.
Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. Director Clark, on this new ordinance, is there a acreage limitation or a minimum before this comes into play, or is it just any property in the parish?
Any property in the area that we're talking about.
My district is in the city, so this would be on y'all, but out in the parish, you guys may want to consider something of a minimum before this takes place. Because in the smaller neighborhoods where there's only a half an acre lot, that could pose a concern, but for your acreage, that's 5 acres plus, obviously this is a good thing, so just something to consider for the rural parish commissioners. That's all. Thanks, President.
Okay, Commissioner Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to get some clarification, Mr. Clark. I believe you said that if ordinance 11-1 were to pass, the MPC and the Parish Zoning Commission would still have the ability to prohibit egregious behavior.
That's correct. We did not want it to just let it turn into the Wild Wild West, but there is a need a lot of times to allow the placement of these accessory buildings in the front yard, and they're reasonable size, and they are very compatible with the primary residence, so we would go forth and grant those permits.
And if someone, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, so let's not go too deep here, but if someone were to disagree with you with the determination of the Metropolitan Planning Commission and the Parish Zoning Commission, what recourse would they have?
They could appeal it to you all.
Appeal it to the body? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. That appears to be the last comment. There's a motion on the floor to englobo 11.1, 2, 3.
We hadn't talked about the rest of them.
Clarification or clear. Yeah, I was trying to get them to clarify all of them before.
Oh, okay then.
We can take either one of them out if y'all don't want to do that.
All right.
The next,
Clark.
and I guess it's ordinance 6404 of 2024. That was a restriction on the materials that could be used for accessory dwelling units. We had found, and some of the board members on both boards, the Metropolitan Planning Commission and the Caddo Parish Planning and Zoning Commission, were sharing with us that around the country, compact containers and storage containers and other type uses like materials like this were being allowed to be accessory dwelling units, and they wanted the city of Shreveport and the parish of Caddo to allow the same thing. So we did the research, and we did find that it is happening around the country. Personally, I don't like them, but that's not what the city and the parish needs. My personal likes and no dislikes, but around the country, people are living in these compact containers and other interesting uses for living purposes, and all it has to do is meet the residential building code.
There's no other question. Is there another one on there that needs to be explained? Just going through each one.
You want?
Going through each
Yeah,
one.
I was asking
Okay,
to go through
we'll
each one.
then.
Okay. The next ordinance does
6405.
this is and I'm just getting at 6405. This is the one for this started in the parish, and it originated in the parish, and it caused us to do a lot of extensive research. You may be noticing on news from around the country that 18-wheeler truck parking is a serious problem because there are just not significant enough places for the 18-wheelers because of the increase in 18-wheelers to transport things around the country. So we initially had an ordinance that would allow truck parking, but the surface had to be concrete or asphalt. And the trucking companies, the persons wanting to provide truck parking, were saying that that was cost prohibitive, that concrete was just too expensive, and asphalt. And other materials were available that could be used and do the same thing. So we provided a recommendation to both boards that there could be alternative surfaces if these alternative surfaces were approved by a civil engineer and the application had a civil engineer stamp on it. verifying that it was of a nature where it could sustain the weight of 18-wheelers and protect the fluids and so forth from going deep into the ground.
I may ask, on those parking facilities, because they're putting some in my district right now along I-20 and Greenwood Road. One of the main purposes for concreting it was to keep the fluids from seeping in the ground. Is that?
And ensuring that, the surface could withstand the weight of these big trucks. They have trucks and trailers, and a lot of times that's enormous weight. And the engineers, this is what they do. So as long as the engineers would verify that the proposed surface could withstand the weight and protect the property from fluids seeping into the ground, we thought that was a good way to allow for alternative surfaces.
Well, I can see that in the urban center, because a lot of times those trucks make big ruts when they pull off the road or the street onto these surfaces, and I can see that coming into the entrance to the parking, because they do make a large ruts on the side of the road as they come off the roadway. Commissioner Epperson, is this associated with this?
Mr. Clark, what about berm areas or catch basins? Like when they build large standing structures where they pave the parking lots, they have the drainage to go to have a reservoir, because you got a lot of vehicles that come on there that leaks and have accidents and things of that nature, where it won't get directly into the surface water that may go to our lakes and streams. So any berm protection or anything on these structures that they think that concrete is cost prohibitive, because you never know when an internal valve on a tanker truck is going to leak, and you're going to have a situation with those fluids permeating through the soil.
I agree. That's why we required the certification by a civil engineer that there are preventive mechanisms to prevent these type things from happening. They wanted us to just be able to approve it administratively, but we don't have the expertise to do exactly what you're talking about. But they ensure that the drainage is addressed, and that anything that could happen negatively would be addressed by them putting their seal on the site plan.
That's all I have, sir.
Commissioner Yarl?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 questions about this. My third one was exactly the same as Commissioner Epperson's. It would be nice to see something explicit in the existing concrete style truck parking facilities, and also new ones for gravel, that directs runoff water into someplace other than our waterways for fluids that are not allowed to seep into the ground, because we don't really want either, but when there are fluids, they are going to have to go somewhere, and the rain is going to wash them there. So maybe you could look into that and bring us and go through the process for an amendment to this that explicitly says that civil engineering should certify about the runoff potential and infiltration of dangerous fluids. And then my other 2 questions. The first one is this for tractor trailer parking only, or does it apply to just the tractor as well?
We had to interpret it as the tractor and the trailer, but you could park a trailer
So you could park a trailer anywhere?
in the approved parking lot for 18-wheeler parking.
Can you park a tractor in another place that's not approved for a tractor trailer?
No, sir.
Okay. There is a, so that leads to my second question. There is a liquor store in my neighborhood called Highland Fine Wines and Good Spirits, I think, where pretty much every weekend, although not over the holidays, there is just a tractor parked. And so first of all, it sounds like that might not be allowed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so my question is, how does enforcement about that take place?
Well, our enforcement has to be by complaint. It has to be complaint driven. If someone calls and report that this is happening, we go out and investigate and go through the normal process of advising the property owner with certified mail that this is not allowable. And after 2 letters, we refer to the city prosecutor, the parish attorney for prosecution.
Okay. Well, thank you for that answer. I think it would be good to let the owner of the liquor store that I mentioned know that now, because it has happened many times in the last 6 months there.
May I reach out to you after this and get
Certainly,
the
yes.
total? Because I may just forget the location.
Certainly. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. First question, would there be a special zone, or would this just be
It's in industrial.
industrial? So if it's not an industrial zone, they can't do it.
They can't do it.
So if somebody had 5 acres of land and they wanted to put a truck parking, they would have to get it, if it's RA, they would have to get it zoned to industrial.
They have to get it rezoned.
All right, that was my first question. Second one is, how many trucks are considered for a truck parking lot to be considered for this? Is it 1 truck, 2 trucks?
Anytime a 18-wheeler is parked and left overnight, that's considered a overnight truck parking facility.
Okay, and the reason I asked that is because there are some truck drivers that actually take their trucks and park them at their house. And some citizens have been complaining about that. And they said that they've called the MPC, they've called the police, and nobody enforced on their end. Now somebody might goes out and does an enforcement on it. They just don't know about it. So can you clear that up so that they'll know?
We notify the property owner that they're in violation of the Caddo Parish Unified Development Code or the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code. Also, the police in the City of Shreveport are authorized to write tickets when trucks are parked in residential areas. I will admit that we're still working to make this a priority. We've had trucks parking in strip shopping centers, and it's sort of low. I'm trying to carefully select my words. It's sort of low on the priority for police to go out and write tickets for these violations because they are dealing with much heavier crime. But we do go out. We do recommend to the Shreveport Police Department to write tickets, and we notify the existing property owner.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had on that.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes, I'd like to ask Dr. Ward to come up. Dr. Ward, while you're coming up, I guess my question is, don't we have ordinances also that address the water retention and detention for businesses? Is that correct?
Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner. Both in the city has a zero impact. So anytime you add in permeable surfaces such as a concrete or a SB2 base parking lot, that water has to be captured and held and released at the same rate that it was prior to. So that includes into the parish 5-mile radius, which we don't have quite a zero impact policy, but we have like a 100-year storm policy. So there will be stormwater detention added to those locations, and in those stormwater detention, unless it's just a leak or some massive catastrophe happens to one of those tankers during a heavy rainstorm where the water is needing to be released, it should be captured in one of those stormwater detention ponds and properly handled with diapers or any type of other collection devices. So that should not be a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Chavez?
Thank you, President. I think everybody's kind of on the same. Dr. Ward, don't leave just yet, if you will. I'm looking on here, number 3. It's got the provision: any vehicle stored on site must be stored so that no fluids will drain into the storm sewer system. But that's kind of really it. I think, like LBJ said, I won't be here when this gets adopted in 2 weeks. But Dr. Ward, before this goes to final passage, could you draft some literature that the commissioners could look at that could add one more addendum on here to try to achieve that zero impact in the parish for this specific scenario, because it's going to be a lot of fluids in these scenarios.
I hear you, Commissioner. I don't think that the zero impact in the parish is going to be that great. Our 100-year storm handles probably 99.9% of all the situations. When you create zero impact, like the city has done, you're creating a economic responsibility for developers, not only that truck stop, but other development too. You pretty much need to be widespread on zero impact. And so I wouldn't sit here and say that. I think that's probably an economic development situation that you probably don't want to go down at this moment. But I can tell you that right now our 100-year impact on our stormwater retention is the right way to go.
So that should be sufficient. We should be okay with this?
Yes,
Okay.
by far.
I just want to make sure that we're good on that. I appreciate it, Doctor. Thanks for the
Well,
advice.
thank you.
Dr. Allen, thanks for coming down and giving us. I know you've been working on this for a while, so
Yes.
it's great to see that this is coming to fruition.
May I add one more comment about that one? Anytime we do a code text amendment, we include all of the experts for the parish and the city. This is not just a MPC recommendation. We have solicited the effect, the impact, and so forth from the city engineer, public works in the parish, and all the other departments that would be involved. And then we make a recommendation to the board.
President, thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
On the citations or whatnot, I think there's some confusion or there's some discrepancies on how it's enforced because although I am in the inner city, I've seen where the police say they can't cite trucks, oversized trucks, and things of that nature because it's a civil issue and not a criminal issue.
It is in the code of ordinances for the city of Shreveport that gives them the authority to cite trucks, and they have cited a lot of trucks.
I thought they said it was a property standards issue. Is it
No,
SPD
it has
or is
nothing
it?
to do with property standards.
Okay.
It's a police and zoning issue in that the zoning ordinance does not allow truck parking anywhere other than I-1 and I-2.
So where should the complaint come into? Should the complaint go to the police department or should the complaint go to the zoning department?
It could go to either one. We work closely together on trying to solve these truck parking
Right.
issues.
Because most trucks, I guess the vast majority of these issues pop up later in the evening when truckers or whatever get through with their routes. And so obviously the zoning office is not open. And so they should just call police or?
Call the police. As I shared with you earlier, we have a relationship and agreement with the police because the police department never shuts down. That they will continue to monitor these areas and do the appropriate citations.
I think y'all need to maybe talk with the police department because I can only give you the feedback that I get is that that residents call it in to the police and they say that it's not a police issue, it's not a criminal matter, and they don't deal in civil matters. I mean, if I'm misspeaking, I'm misspeaking on the behalf
No, not
of
at all.
what others are saying.
I will share with you, and I said earlier, I'm trying to carefully select my wording, but the police have the authority. It's an educational purpose. I mean, an educational process where, I've talked to Chief Smith and Deputy Chief White, that it's an education process to educate the patrol police that this is a violation and they should be writing tickets.
Do you think, I think it's more of a nuisance, and I'm going to get off of this because we really need to probably move on, but you think it's more of a nuisance, or maybe y'all may need to have some conversation between MPC administration, the mayor's office, SPD, because we used to have that, and we hadn't had one I should say y'all, we hadn't had one in probably 3 years, that intergovernmental meeting where things like this would come up. But, maybe it's more of a nuisance issue and the police officer doesn't want to write the ticket for a truck being parked because now they probably have to sit down and write out a report about all that. And so, and they probably feel like, okay, Do I go write this ticket for a truck being parked over here, or do I go, answer this call for whatever more pressing issues that are out there? So I just think there may be some more coordination, because the oversized trucks being parked on the street is a nuisance. One, it's aesthetically bad, but two, as you stated, and I think some others have stated, the streets are not built for that weight limit, and so now the streets are cracking, and now you've got a infrastructure issue, and once your streets go bad, your neighborhood starts, and so there's just a cyclical effect. And so I'm just suggesting that there may need to be some more conversation, or some more pressing conversation around response, because folks are saying that when they call the police about this particular issue, they either tell them that they don't respond, or when they come, they don't write the ticket, or they don't write the citation. I think the citation ought to go to the company, so that they can go back and make the employees stop parking in the neighborhood.
But they sometimes the truck is owned by a private owner, and that's whose police site.
Either way.
And we will continue that conversation. I think that the things that you've said are very important.
Yeah.
We will go back and try to make the process much more in depth.
Okay.
Like I said, they prioritize things, and sometimes a truck in a parking lot or a truck in a residential driveway doesn't reach the height of other things.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, let me follow up on that inquiry. You said that within the city ordinances, the city police enforces it. Now, that's only in the city limits.
Correct.
The 5-mile area, who enforces that?
And that's, we would try to enforce it, and I don't really know if the sheriff department has anything
So
in
you all
their
work
ordinance.
with the sheriff department on policing that?
But you have to recognize that the problem is much more extensive in the city of Shreveport. The parish, many times, the parking of trucks, because these were things that we heard back in 2020. The parking of trucks are not as offensive to a lot of the residents, but we still, if we're called, we still will cite the property owner for parking the truck on residential property.
Well, the reason I ask is that you're getting more development in the 5-mile area. Also, it's not as dense as it is in the city, but it is and can be an issue. So that's the reason I was asking, have we made arrangements, relationships for that area there that we actually control?
And I'd just like to add, some of the commissioners that were here understand the things that I'm saying, because that was one of the main complaints to the MPC, that we were denying property owners, may not necessarily agree with it, but we were not denying property owners their property rights, the use of their property. This was government overreach and all of these things, so we tried to come up with an ordinance that addressed all of those things, but had the authority to try to approach the problem.
Yeah, I understand that, Alan. That I guess that really wasn't my question.
And I understand, but we still get those accusations, and we still trying to work to establish a better relationship with the citizens of the parish, so we just keep experimenting with different ways of approaching different problems.
Okay. All right, we'll let that go at that. I don't see anybody else on the board. So there's been a motion by Commissioner Jackson. Thank you, Alan.
He's still working through these issues.
Shit.
I would be happy to sit down.
Let's continue, Director.
Scratch that. Okay. All right, let's go.
I think the next one is ordinance 6406. This is a
Chairman, may I
residential.
inject, please, before Mr. Clark go through his speech? Okay, this is in my district, Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Everything that I've seen thus far, no concerns from the residents. So at this point in time, we're good with it. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Unless
Everson.
any other commissioners have something to say about it. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along.
Move right along. I wasn't prepared to do this. The next is 6407. This is for a contractor's office. It was an existing contractor's office. They want to expand the office. The property is zone RA, rural agriculture, so they need C3 in order to have the contractor's office.
Commissioner Lazarus.
District 11 is good with this one as well.
Good.
Thank you, Mr.
All right,
Martin.
next.
Yes, sir. The next one is
District 10, Director Clark.
Mr. Mario. This is just an animal care facility. It required the rezoning to C1. Part of the property was already C1, but the other part was R17, so it's just a rezoning.
President, we're good with this one. We only had 6 people show up, and 1 person was for, nobody was against. Thank you, Director Clark.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
The last one, I think, is a situation where there was a commercial building. This is in District 10, I think. 8, I'm sorry.
This is 64 now.
There was a commercial building on a piece of RE residential enterprise property, and a real estate broker just needed an office. He owned the property, just wanted an office. It would be a 1-person office, and he just came in and requested the rezoning. There was no opposition, and it was just recommended to rezone the property.
Commissioner Johnson.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion to just remove 11.1 from the Englobo and keep the other ones in.
I second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded that we remove, I believe that's, what's that number?
11.1, 6403.
Okay, 6403 from the Englobo.
And another point of clarity too, should these, oh, that's fine, never mind about that. But I do also want to say that on the enforcement, I think that just because it's inside the city limits, we shouldn't just limit it to Shreveport Police. We also have the city marshals that can go out and do the same thing, and the sheriff department. And if the citation has some type of assessment fee that would go to that particular branch of law enforcement, that they would get it instead of the one who would normally go out and go do it. I think that would be an incentive for some of them.
Be happy to recommend that to
Okay.
Shreveport Police to include the city marshal and contact Caddo Parish Sheriff.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Machine broken up?
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Epperson.
Okay, I just want to speak in conjunction with the 18-wheelers parking in the suburban areas or rural, however we want to call it. I've had some issues throughout my tenure, especially at Simpson Road and Broissette, a beautiful area that's really developing in some nice homes. And our property standards has gone out and spoken with the resident that parked those vehicles there, and everything was really taken care of.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, are these, to the other people to speak, are these for, okay, Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to make a recommendation as well on this enforcement, is that we have that, I thought we had that commercial weight or vehicle weight division in the parish. I don't understand why y'all can't contract with them to and deputize them to do enforcement in the city limits as well. The sheriff has the ability to deputize anybody parish-wide, and so that's another mechanism. That's more eyes that can go out, and I agree, the fee that you attach to it could go to, back to that agency or that entity that writes the citation. But what I think you're hearing is, from urban, suburban, commissioners is this truck parking issue is an issue. And, folks don't want it in their neighborhood because they know that it tears the street up. I mean, I have streets that buckle. You got asphalt streets. And I'm going to tell you another thing. I think these school buses are also probably part of the issue, too. And we need to have a conversation with the superintendent as well. I don't think these neighborhood streets were built to have these school bus weight sizes of today drove on them. So don't mean to beat a dead horse, but just something that maybe our commercial weight division can look into, and they can be a means to enforce and help enforce with the MPC as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Johnson.
On my last question, if a neighborhood has a homeowners association contract in place, could it supersede what the parish has?
The parish does not, I mean, a homeowners association is not a neighborhood covenant. But if a neighborhood has a covenant, government does not enforce covenants. It just only enforces the ordinances. So if the covenant is more restrictive than the ordinance, that's when the neighborhood association would enforce their covenant. A lot of times they don't want to enforce it.
And they have to end up going to court.
Yeah.
Otherwise, okay. I just wanted to make sure that, because I got asked this question yesterday about that. I'm based upon the one with the storage facility on the 11-1. So there are some neighborhood associations, and they do have covenants in place that restrict this already. But then if this law comes into play, does it confuses the homeowners association officers, and then you'll have one neighbor out of maybe 50 that says, well, this ordinance says I can do it, but the homeowners association covenant says, no, you can't. And so now you got a battle, and it goes to court. So we just need to be on the same page.
We're on the same page. We advise citizens that are in neighborhoods with covenants that they would like for us to enforce their covenants, because then they wouldn't have to retain an attorney. But we advise them that we do not have the authority to enforce their covenants, and we can only enforce the Unified Development Code requirements.
Okay.
And I think that's as far as we can go with them.
All right.
Okay. Oh, Commissioner Watts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to vote to pass this forward to sit over for the next 2 weeks, but there are a lot of additional questions that I will have, especially about this truck parking, the fencing, and the executive director right to override a lot of these things that we're talking about with the restrictive covenants as such. But when we revisit it in 2 weeks, I'll decide then if I'll support it or not.
I understand. I'd just like to add to that process. One of the reasons we start giving administrative approval was to increase the speed of getting things done. When I accepted this position, one of the first things I was told is we're sick of businesses going to Bolger because the MPC takes too long. So this was a shorter process that did not require the advertising, the public hearings, the coming before you. This was a short process in order to attempt to be, we're never given the compliment that we are, but in order to attempt to be much more business friendly, to assist businesses. So, the executive director does not want a whole lot of authority, but we felt that would get it through much quicker.
Absolutely. I totally support economic development, but I also keep in mind that a lot of these roads that we fought a long time to get repaired will be back in the same state that they were in some years ago. I too have had a lot of issues with truck parking in my district, and you've been instrumental in helping get some of those right-of-ways closed off to prevent that. So again, I think that this will make a huge impact economically on our parish, but as well, these are some issues that we do need to address.
And I understand, and we will continue, as always, to allow the UDC to be a live document. We do further studies, we look at what other cities are doing, we sit down and meet and brainstorm on possibilities of what we can do, but we needed some ordinances on the books in order to start addressing some of these things. That's
Totally
why-
agreed. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Clark, I too wanted to thank you for picking up that responsibility on the executive side, because it brings about a lot of criticism. But when we're dealing with economic development issues, I've heard over the 25 years I've been in there, Shreveport is so slow about getting anything done through the MPC or what have you. So hopefully we'll continue that effort, and you will expedite these things that you see fit.
And we just need your support, because we are expediting the process, and we have a much better relationship with the development community. But the only way we can do that is shorten the process, and that's what they asked for and demanded that happen, and we've done it.
All right. Okay, with that in mind, we have a motion on the floor to englobo, that's 6304 through 6409. If there's no other question, we can vote.
All right, that motion carries with 11 in support, none in opposition, and 1 absent right now. Just to make sure, is there a desire to go back to continue considering 11.1? Or do we want to move forward? It was removed from the englobo, but I didn't know if there was a desire to have a separate motion to advance it.
As I understand it, it was just removed from the englobo, unless I didn't hear the postpone.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure. I knew it was removed from the englobo. I just didn't know if after that happened, if anybody was interested in still advancing it on its own.
Make a motion to postpone 6403
Second.
Okay,
Until-
been motion seconded to postpone.
until at least a month.
6403. By
Thank you.
what
That
time?
gives us some sort of official record of what happened to it. Thank you for that motion.
Are we given a date to which we are postponing it, or are we just saying we're postponing it?
Second meeting in February.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to postpone this to the second meeting in February? Okay. All right, we can vote?
Okay, and that motion carries with 10 in support, 1 in opposition. And that brings us to item 11.9, which is 6410 of 2024, which is an ordinance to advancing the introduction of ordinance 6410, an ordinance amending the 2023 budget to amend the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Head Start Fund and otherwise provide with respect thereto. This is in response to the inclusion of Head Start in your annual budget now. This is a requirement.
Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Jackson.
Englobo 6410 and 6411. Englobo in advance.
Okay, it's been moved and second to englobo 6410 and 11 and to advance. Commissioner Johnson.
I was just gonna say, I think that these are just maybe some cleanup from last year, closing out last year's budget. One is dealing with the Head Start program, CCAA, and the other one is the Housing Choice voucher program that does the Section 8. I don't know it's called Section 8 anymore, but Housing Choice voucher program with the Housing Authority. This is not rental assistance, but this is the traditional housing voucher program that's been decades old. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that on the Head Start, that is just federal money that's passed through.
Right.
That it's not coming out of the parish budget. Just wanted to make sure that citizens know that and not, that we're, increasing their budget by $3 million from parish money. That is actual federal money, so. This is federally funded money that we're talking about and not money that's coming out of the parish.
It's not,
It's not new.
Okay, it's a motion and second, we can vote.
And that motion carries with 11 in support to advance those items. That brings us now to 11.10, which is advancing the introduction of Ordinance 6412 of 2024. That is an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures to appropriate funds for a Caddo Community Lighthouse pilot project and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Young. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, I'm glad to see that they finally made their way to Galilee. So good idea, and support the concept and the project. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I guess to my understanding, the organization was doing these lighthouses in phases. So phase 1 was Morning Star and the Highland Center. Phase 2 was supposed to be Willow Shoot and I think Williams Memorial Temple. So to put money into this, and the organization is not looking at this as in phase 2, why would we do that? That's my question. And that's talking to the organizers that phase 2 was Willow Shoot and Williams and not Galilee. Galilee was even considered at the time of phase 2.
Well, all I know about that is that we had well, I wouldn't call it a public meeting. It was a meeting at Morning Star in which the third, another church came up, which was not involved in this. And Galilee was also there, since it has always served as a community center, even prior to the storms, and they were being considered all, is all that I know.
Well, I'm just saying prior to the meeting at Morning Star, which I knew about that one, but when they started organizing this and started looking at the locations, their pitch to me and also to the other commissioners that was in the meetings with us was that they was doing this in phases, and that they wanted to select Morning Star and the Highland Center for phase 1. Phase 2 was Willow Shoot because it would cover like the north side of town. And then the Williams Memorial will also help cover the west side of town. So, and that was my understanding when they started talking about the locations that they wanted to have in phase 1, 2. Now phase 3, I don't know what they was doing on that, but I know at least for phase 1 and 2, those were the 4 churches that they had selected, but they couldn't do all of them at one time because they don't have the resources to do it. And they had to make sure that they could even get past phase 1, which the 2 churches they had selected. So I don't know if you're going to try to make them supersede their plan to incorporate Galilee, or the money will just be sitting out there until they get to Galilee, if they get to it. Because I don't know how, but they also were looking at federal funding, parish funding, some money from the city, and then some private donations. So I wouldn't say not to tie up money like that, just to bring it up when it's time for that phase and the church is selected, as opposed to tying up money now. So
Well, I'm not familiar with the phases. I know that they came here and they talked about 4 initially, 4 locations. And now in terms of phasing in, I'm not familiar with that. Maybe someone else is familiar with that. But I know the initial ask was for 4. We only talked about 2 initially, and that was the Highland Center and Morning Star. But after the meeting that they had at Morning Star, then I know that they, the pastor of Galilee, which is a new pastor, assessed it, and it's my understanding that they in talk with the organization, and they were very receptive to it. I mean, that's the last I heard of it, because I haven't been directly involved in it. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just seeking some clarity here. Are we seeking, is this request to fund 2 pilot programs?
It would actually be, you originally approved 2 Morning Star and Highland Center. This would be an additional one at Galilee that you would fund. The commission would.
All right, so has any money been spent to date?
We have not spent, but we have contracted, we've drafted the contract for the first, the Morning Star one. We drafted that and we held off on the second one to adjust the funding source, Highland Center. We haven't had discussions on Galilee as to whether or not the commission would fund that or having conversation with the Lighthouse organization about that particular one. But we have been in discussion about Morning Star and Highland Center.
Well, doesn't 6412 refer to Galilee?
6412 is Galilee, the 6413 is Highland Center. So Galilee would be a brand new appropriation.
Okay. And why was this denied by the federal government, by American Rescue Plan?
I'll let Ms. Barnett address that, but it's the Highland Center one that on the funding source she has better information about that particular item.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Somebody speak in the microphone.
I think it takes them a minute to turn it on.
Oh, okay.
Can y'all hear me now?
Hello, hello.
It's on.
There you go. Now you're
Okay,
on.
can you hear me now? Okay, so as y'all all know, the ARPA requirements are very rigid and strict. And so one of the major issues for the lighthouses is strictly that the FEMA pre-mitigation rules that ARPA has to follow, ARPA projects have to follow for the pre-mitigation, says you cannot make changes to a religious facility. And since all of these structures are primary churches, we cannot use federal dollars to make substantial changes to the infrastructure of religious buildings. And that's primary. There's a lot of other smaller reasons, but that's the primary reason.
Okay.
And the second reason is what Erica alluded to earlier, is that we would not have control of those assets. And when you pay for something with grant federal dollars, you have to follow those assets all the way to disposal, which could be years, and we wouldn't have control of those if they're in another facility.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Last comment. My position on this project has not changed from when it was initially proposed as an ARPA project. I am not opposed to the mission of providing places of refuge during a storm, but I am opposed to the approach of installing solar panels. I don't have a problem with solar panels, but I have a problem with the economics of this project, and I think that the mission could be met much more in a much more cost-effective manner by installing a natural gas powered generator at each of these facilities instead of an elaborate solar array. I still don't understand, well, I have my suspicions about the motivations for pursuing the solar route as opposed to the natural gas generator route, but I don't know why they want to do the solar route as opposed to the natural gas generator route. So I'm not opposed to the mission, but I'm opposed to the approach. I'll be voting no on forwarding it.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, let me ask this: if you provided the economic data on the generator versus the solar, because I keep hearing you say that you don't have a
It's a
problem with
green
it.
project, that's why. It's a green project, which means using green energy instead of using fossil fuels.
Yeah.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean I'm
Right, I was just clearing it up for you.
Well, I'm trying to, yeah, well, that's from my understanding. Have we provided any economic data on for the comparison? Because what I'm hearing you talk about is that one
I've
is
asked
cheaper
them
than
about it.
the
I
other.
have not seen them convince me otherwise, and they're asking for my vote. So if they want me to vote yes, they've got to convince me that this is the best route to go. Otherwise, I'm going to protect the shareholder. I'm going to do my best to protect the tax-paying dollars of Caddo Parish citizens who I represent. So if they want to convince me otherwise that this is a more economic route for the Caddo Parish taxpayer to provide this service, then I'm open to hearing about it. But I've heard him state, I've heard the Together Louisiana guy state that this route is the most economic route, but I don't believe it. I'm open to being convinced. I've seen no data to indicate to me otherwise. I just know that when I've put in a natural gas generator at my house, it's a fraction of the cost of what's being proposed here.
Okay, well, that was my question. Since we're talking about economic data, they provided you're saying that they haven't provided the cost for this?
Well, I've expressed my view that this was a much more expensive route than the natural gas generator route. I've seen no data to rebut that statement, so I'm sticking to my belief.
Okay, so you're asking them to get the data for the generator to compare
I'm
to
telling them
theirs.
if they feel differently and they truly feel like this is the most economic route, I'm opening to being convinced that this route is the most economic route.
Okay.
Now remember. Now I'm not. If they're talking about, if they're running this. If they're talking about powering the facility 365 days a year, that may be a different scenario. But that's not the goal here. The stated goal is to provide emergency services when needed for natural disasters. So to place that much infrastructure on a facility to provide services that the mission is this emergency service, I just can't believe that. I think that solar infrastructure is the most effective way to provide emergency services.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. I talked in length on this one from my prior military service, having 12 years in the National Guard, where we faced many natural disasters. They actually sent me off to a school for power generation. We use diesel generators to power everything. But we'll take my experience aside. Dr. Ward, at all of our different camps that we have, what do we use for standby power generation currently? What do we have in place right now? Do we have solar panels at any of our buildings?
Mr. Chavez, I would also be open to diesel power generation.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, sir, we have zero backup right now.
We have zero backup, but it's in the works that we're going to start looking at putting power generation at different facilities.
Okay, some of our compactor sites and our operations. That
And
we
are those going to be solar powered or gas or diesel powered?
We haven't got that far yet.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think we've been looking at this. I was against it back then because it's not going to net the power generation that we need. We had an electrician look at this. The cost of a standby generator roughly is $50,000. We could have it sitting in a yard at a local place for deployment and have all the power generation that we need. The solar panel didn't work then. However, I'm with Commissioner Atkins. The mission is sound, what they're trying to accomplish, but the method is not. Now, back when this got passed, it was passed with federal dollars. It wasn't our community dollars. So now we're sitting at the junction where the Fed said no, it didn't work. So now we're coming back to the table, and I find it comical that we're literally going to use oil and gas money to buy solar panels for this mission. I'm a no, guys. I was a no then because it didn't make sense. Now it makes even worse sense because we're having to use oil and gas money, and that's a slap in the face to all the people that work in our industry, in oil and gas industry here in Caddo Parish. The very pin that all of us are wearing has an oil rig on it, and we're going to say we're going to take these funds and fund a different organization for emergency. It doesn't make any sense. We need to go back to the table. They need to come back to us and show us why do they want to do this so bad with solar panels. Why don't we utilize what we have right here in Caddo Parish? Thanks, President.
I can only say that we're moving toward more of a green energy is what I understand. We're already talking about disasters, and it's my understanding, based upon all the information that I've seen on a national basis, that fossil fuel is creating more of a disproportionately creating, let's put it that way. And we're moving in a different direction. So just because we've done things the same way for so many years, doesn't mean that we have to do it going forward, it's all. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes. Madam Administrator, let me ask, if my understanding is correct, 6412 is funding standalone site for Galilee, right? Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And 6413, basically it has been determined that we cannot do the project from ARPA dollars, right? And so
Correct.
you've got to do it from oil and gas, right?
That's
And
what
so
it
if
was.
6413 doesn't pass, the project at Morningstar and the Highland Center is failed too, right? Or the project at Morningstar and Highland Center doesn't go forward.
Highland Center. We've gone forward because when you did the allocation for Highland Center and Morningstar, it was 250 from oil and gas, 250 from ARPA. We went forward with the 250 from oil and gas from Morningstar.
Oh,
That
okay.
was in talking with the Lighthouse, that
Okay.
one was the most ready to go.
Gotcha. But Highland Center won't get done.
Highland Center wasn't, so
Okay.
that's why we're asking for change in funding only, because you all have already supported those
Gotcha.
two locations.
Okay, so there is a precedence already for doing a Lighthouse deal with oil and gas funding.
Yes.
Gotcha. I'm just gonna suggest, because my understanding is that the federal government provided the state of Louisiana with $240 million to do projects, and part of that funding from the $240 million from the Department of Energy went to the Lighthouse programs, and they were looking to do more at a quicker time. That's how you see Galilee coming up quicker. It wasn't about skipping over anybody, or it wasn't about saying that we're going to do this group and not do another group. It was about saying that they could accommodate more with what they had received. They were not expecting the Energy Secretary to come down and drop off that much money from the federal government. And so that's why you see the organization, the Lighthouse Group, coming back saying, we can do more now. And so what I don't want to see us do is try to pit one project against another. Projects have gone forward. We've made a commitment. But I'm concerned that it sounded like, from some of the question earlier, is that we're trying to say, well, you know, why would we add Galilee when we hadn't gotten to some of these other projects? I'm gonna submit that the most vulnerable population that needs to be served in a consolidated and compacted area is in the area around Lakeside and Galilee. Lakeside, Allendale areas where your older residents live. They are the ones that need it the most. And I said that when we did the first one. But Galilee somehow got left out. I didn't get into politics of all of that. I let the pastor come down, say what he did. I was a good team player, and I supported it. But don't, when Galilee come down, we sit here and try to play this game of, well, why we gonna do that one? Support the folks that have supported you and supported your project. And it shouldn't be a this or that. It shouldn't be a zero-sum situation. If we've got the resources to do it and we've got a precedent already set of doing it from the funding source, what are we talking about? It doesn't make sense. We should be better than that in 2024. We've already set a precedence of doing this from oil and gas, and I get the objections that have been raised. I can respect their positions because they hadn't moved off of theirs. But don't 3-4 months ago, we got to do it. And now here in January, we backing up? Come on. That's not what we should do. The program has been recognized nationally. The Secretary of the Energy Department came down to Baton Rouge, recognized what Caddo Parish was doing on the forefront of it and said, here's more money to do it. Go find more and go get to it. And that's what you see here. So let's not do this, because it looks like another one could be stopped in its tracks. And are we really going to do that today? Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to say this, and you can take it any kind of way you want to take it. This plan was brought to us by a group. This wasn't a Caddo Parish Commission effort. This was a private group effort that they came and asked for some parish dollars to help them get these federal dollars. Now, they got the federal dollars, and their plan, they've done the studies, and their plan is to do it a certain way. Now, you got commissioners up here that many of you go to different churches. So to me, the politics comes in is when a commissioner is at a particular church and wants to have that church included into the plan that wasn't into the plan in the beginning. Every commissioner up here could say, I want my church to be next. But these were choices that the organization made and not us. I don't even know if the group even know that we're talking about Galilee today.
They do know. They were there.
I'm talking about on the agenda for today. If otherwise, they would at least have 2 or 3 representatives here. And you can't tell me they wouldn't, because every time they came down here and asked for money, they had representatives down here. So don't play the games of, well, you for this or that. I only said whenever Galilee comes up under their plan, then allocate the money if the money is needed. Don't have the money sitting there, because all the gas money is very vital to the parish funding. So if you allocate this money, it's sitting there, and they might not get to Galilee for the next 6, 7 years.
How can you assume that?
I'm talking hypothetically right now.
Well, that's hypothetical.
You don't know how fast it's going to take these solar panels, one, to get constructed, to get put in, and then to be tested. And this is a pilot program. This is not something that we're going full throttle on. It's a pilot program. So you're going to have some type of disaster to happen in order to test the system. So that's why I'm saying, as it is a pilot program, don't try to act like it's a full program that we're funding. Now, if you had came and said, well, the Lighthouse didn't consider Galilee, and I want to consider Galilee to be a lighthouse that the parish could do as another type of pilot program, and put diesel compressors out there or natural gas compressors out there to generate those, the electricity for those, that's fine. That's a whole different look. That's 2 different programs running at the same time. You can then determine which way you're going to go, therefore, after that. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about using somebody else's program that they got federal dollars for, that they done the study and said these are the churches we want to try to do. That's all I got. This is supposed to be at the end. I'm supposed to be happy. You ready to get ready to go?
Well, we should be happy. They came here and asked for 4 churches. They chose 2 initially, because he said that we'll consider 2. But 4 was the number that I understood when they first came. And since then, this organization that you're talking about has also approached Galilee. And then that 4th church is one who actually volunteered the meeting that we had over there at Morning Star, not at Morning Star itself. So that's 4. One is funding it by themselves. The organization did consider the first 2, that's Highlands and Morning Star, and then since then they've met with Galilee, because they were a vital part of the emergency homeland security emergency situation when we went through this last disaster. So they've all been basically talked to. So
they didn't kick out Willow-Chute or Williams Memorial.
I'm sorry?
So they've kicked out Willow-Chute Baptist Church or Williams Memorial CME Church. They've kicked one of those out. You said 4 churches.
It's 4 churches.
So Morning Star, the Highland Center, Willow-Chute, and Williams Memorial. That's 4 churches. And you can talk about Galilee, that's 5. One of them had to be kicked out.
There was one that was added the meeting that we had at Morningstar. I don't know which church that was, but that was up in the Cooper Road area, from what I understand.
That's Willow-Shoot.
Oh, that's Willow-Shoot, so that made the 4. I don't know about a 5 up there.
Okay.
Commissioner Epperson.
Call for the question on the motion.
Okay, the
Second.
question has been called and a second. We'll vote on the, call for the question.
And this is for the call for the question.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Jones and seconded by Commissioner Atkins for a call for the question.
Commissioner.
Commissioner Epperson.
I was trying to second it. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm only looking at what I see here. I hear what is being said, but it's registered on your machine. But anyway, we can vote.
Commissioner Burrell? Thank you. All right, that motion carries with 10 in support, 1 in opposition. And that brings us now to consider the motion at hand to advance the introduction of Ordinance 6412 of 2024.
I thought that was in Globo.
I thought it was just that one.
No,
Just that one.
Just that one.
I'm sorry, our records reflect it was just a motion to
been talking
advance
about
6412.
Right, we just been talking about it.
That's correct.
Together.
Okay, we can vote.
Okay, and that motion does pass with 6 in support, 5 in opposition.
Is mine a yes or a no?
I'm sorry, my screen is not showing that.
I need to change it to no, I'm sorry.
Yours is showing a yes for you, man.
Now, put it to no.
Okay, then that would fail,
Thank
and
you.
that would be 5 in support, 6 in opposition. So that motion does not advance. That brings us now to the next item, which is ordinance, advancing the introduction of ordinance 6413 of 2024. This is the community lighthouse, but this is specific to the one in Highland.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Young. Commissioner Johnson.
I have nothing to say.
Okay, Commissioner Young. Okay, we can vote.
All right, that does advance with 6 in support, 5 in opposition, and 1 absent. So that brings us now to 11.12, considering advancing the introduction of ordinance 6414 of 2024. This is an ordinance declaring the intent of the parish under Louisiana Revised Statutes 472236 to acquire full ownership interest in a parcel of property identified by Caddo Parish Tax Assessor Geographic Number as 1814373650 and described as Lot 5 JB Pickett Subdivision, TAL 14 in Shreveport, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. This item is in District 3.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Johnson.
I yield to Commissioner District 3. I thought that was the next one.
Let's move on.
Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Ward, could you come up and just give us a real quick summary of why we're buying these properties in? Sorry, I know we all want to push forward with the agenda. I just need a little clarity on this. High level is fine.
Yes, thank you. I have William Talton. He's our adjudicated property right-of-way manager for that. He'll be able to answer those questions.
Okay, sir.
Okay. This is an additional property that's gone through Reinvest Caddo. We have a person that's made an application on this piece of property to acquire it through that program, and so that's why it's on the agenda today.
And we acquired and lay it aside? Is it because it's in a flood zone? Is that the issue?
This is adjudicated property that's been adjudicated, and so under this program, the parish actually seizes the property. The applicant pays the costs of the parish acquiring the property. Once that's done, then through a private sale, it's sold to them.
Okay, thank you. Are these all 3 of these adjudicated properties? Okay, thank you.
All 3 of them on the next, on the agenda are adjudicated properties.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, these are similar to what Taylor Properties and People of Praise and everybody else do, the same program.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Commissioner Johnson.
Like to in global in advance.
Well, hold on. I'm sorry. I only see one property on the,
6415, 6414, and 6416.
Second.
Commissioner Jackson, I believe, so he was referring to the three items there. So there are three separate items, each specific to one piece of property, but there's three items that are related to property transfers. Is that what you were asking?
No, 6416 is adjudicated also, but that's not a reinvest cap.
somebody said 3. Right.
Well, all three are adjudicated properties which the parish
14, 15, and 16.
is acquiring title to through the same state law. The result of it will be different because only one of them is being transferred under the Caddo Reinvest. The other two are being transferred elsewhere.
Commissioner, okay, like everybody's off the board, we can vote.
Okay, and that motion carries with 11 in support, advancing those three items. That brings us now to the consideration of advancing resolution number 1 of 2024, which is a resolution to designate and change the polling places for precinct 3-3, 3-7, and 9-13, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Jackson and second by Commissioner Hopkins. Oh, Commissioner Jackson.
Okay, Ms. McCollum. Cherokee Park had always been known as 5A and 5B. I do want to, I saw Mr. Spence, Clerk of Court Mike Spence, at the prayer vigil last week talking about these changes. I really, really, really want to encourage us to be very aggressive, Madam Administrator, about advertising these precinct changes. Some of these organizations or some of these neighborhoods even identify, Commissioner Jones, I think you have a neighborhood association that identifies themselves as, I think, Precinct 38 Concerned Citizens. That's how they identify themselves, was by their precincts. And so this change is big, particularly for your older, I should not gonna say older, for your seasoned chronic voters. And please, I can just see the hysteria that can be created with it. I'm talking about the number change, not the location, not the location. I'm talking about the number change. They know by their number. The number is what they go by. And I can tell you, when I get ready for an election, I don't go by neighborhood. If somebody say 5A, I tell you I'm going to Cherokee Park. If somebody say 67, I'm going to Lakeside. If somebody say 1, I'm going to the Cooper Road. So I want us to make sure that we own that. And I saw Mike Spence out doing it, but I want to emphasize we got to be very, very hands-on and letting folks know that these numbers are changing and what these changes reflect. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Commissioner Hopkins? Okay, let's vote.
And it looks like Commissioner Epperson is out of the movement, so let's mark him as absent for this one. All right, and that brings us passed by majority vote with 10 in support, none in opposition, and 2 absent. That brings us now to considering advancing Resolution 2 of 2024, a resolution approving the holding of an election in Caddo Parish Fire District 7, State of Louisiana on Saturday, April 27th, 2024, to authorize the continuation of a special tax therein. This is at the request of this fire district.
Motion by Commissioner Todd Hopkins, second by Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, this was a request from Caddo Parish Fire District 7. This is a continuation of a special tax for 10 more years. That's it, thank you.
Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to ask how this election works. Do we, is it like a normal election, just in a very small area? And is there a reason why it can't be done on a date when we're having another election?
This is just for that, for that fire district, and they can only hold the election on March, April, or the fall. And so this is an election that would be normally called in April. I don't know what else is gonna be on that ballot. I know the city is considering something.
Is it too late to put it on the March special election that we're having?
I would think yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Young, I believe this was the date that they were approved to add it through they have to go through,
The bond commission.
because it has to go through the bond, state bond approval body. I think that is who approved them to add it to this date.
Okay, thank you.
Apologize if I stumbled over the names there, but it's a process of approvals, and I think that by the time they got through the approval process, this was the first date available for them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Johnson.
Fire District 7 is in North Caddo?
Yes.
Okay.
Wall City, Morningsville,
Morning up that way?
Blanchard.
Okay, all right.
north of Blanchard.
Okay, we can vote.
All right, and that motion carries with 11 in support, none in opposition, and 1 absent. That brings us now to consideration of resolution number 3, advancing a resolution to authorize the Caddo Community Action Agency to administer the Head Start program for the parish of Caddo. This is their annual resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Everson. Commissioner Johnson.
I'd like to englobo in advance Resolution 3 and Resolution 4.
Second.
And the special resolution for Calvary Baptist Church State Championship, and the special resolution for Corey Davis, and the special resolution recognizing the contribution of outgoing commissioners, the special resolution under Judge Sheba Sims, and the special resolution of Mona Bowman, and to advance the appointment to North Caddo Medical Center Board, and to advance the presentation of special resolution regarding Donna Curtis.
Would you also like to include the 2 agenda additions in that englobo?
No, I
Okay.
didn't see him on here, so no, not.
No problem. Just thought I'd ask.
Okay, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. As it relates to Calvary Baptist Academy, I like to have that advance, but present it at a later date. The head coach can't be here due to a death in the family tomorrow, and he wants to be here with the team, and I think he deserves that opportunity. So if you all are okay with presenting it at a later date, and I can get that back to the new commission and just come down with them and take part in that then, if that's all right with everybody.
Okay, Commissioner Gage Watts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to be added as a sponsor to 1125.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Atkins.
And may I please also be added as a sponsor, thank you, to 25.
Absolutely.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I'd like to be added for the one for Judge Latier, as well as the one for Donna Curtis. And I think that is it. And Sheila Sims as well. No, take me off the one for Judge Sims. Add me to the one for Ms. Bowman.
So, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Jackson, that was to add you to the one for Donna Curtis, Andrea Bowman, or Mona Bowman, and Judge
Latier.
Latier, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Hopkins.
I'd just like to be added from Ms. Curtis' resolution.
And just as
Looks like from
a
everybody.
further explanation, all of your names do appear on the
Okay.
resolution. So
Oh,
we
okay,
went ahead
well,
and,
that's
because
fine.
when you adopted that, it was adopted unanimously. So we do have all your names on there. But just in terms of sponsors, we'll add these names that have requested to be added.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I want to be added as a sponsor to Calvary Baptist state championship.
Okay.
Judge Seba Sims, Mona Bowman, and Donna Kurtz.
Okay. And I would like to be added to Judge Sims and which one is that? Donna Curtis. Okay, we can vote.
Okay, and that motion carries to advance, Englobo and advance those items that were mentioned. That brings us now to the two items that were previously considered as agenda additions, which the first being is advancing a presentation of a special resolution to Dr. Joe Gant Jr. upon his 50th anniversary preaching, and that is one, again, that you've already adopted the special resolution. It just needs to be advanced for presentation.
Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jackson.
Move to englobo both items, please.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to englobo. We can vote and advance.
Are we voting to,
On those two items that were added. Okay,
may I speak?
Commissioner Atkins.
I'd like just some clarity. I'm not opposed to it. I'd just like some clarity on what's
Yep.
going on with the building there, the Brandon building.
Yes, we had some discussion. We've been trying to find for quite a while a place to, well, I won't say for quite a while, since we were notified in October or November. We were
In the fall.
we were notified in the fall that Johnny Gray Jones would be shutting down, and so we've had some conversations. We've identified this location. Staff and administration will still have to go through OJJ. DCFS will have to give their approval for the site to be used there as well. They already have OJJ approval, and I believe they have DCS approval already. But there may need to be some additional approvals. I'm not sure, but there are already OJJ and DCFS kits that are being placed there. But staff is more than welcome to go through and give its endorsement before we place students there. Judge Ree Casey Jones has identified this location. She's fine with it. But as you know, Johnny Gray Jones shut down. They were operating in Bossier. We're not paying to house kids from Bossier and everywhere else. This is solely for Caddo Parish kids.
And those dollars are coming from the old gray allocation over?
Yes, those dollars that were already allocated for Johnny Gray Jones are already in place, and that's where those dollars will go. I think it might have been $30,000 that was spent last year, or $25,000. I think 90 was budgeted, and maybe 30 was spent, and so the dollars are already.
Sounds like a nice alternative. Thank
Right.
you. That's fine.
And I think Bishop Brandon also, there's a wing that is not being used, and that was the real big sticker is they have to be able to make sure that the students are separated. And there's a wing that they are working, I'm told, to get up and going. OJJ Secretary Curtis Nelson is supposed to come up, take a look, and give them permission and sign off on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, it appears that no one else is on the board. We can vote.
Commissioner Johnson. Thank you. And that motion carries with 11 in support and none in opposition. That brings us now to citizens' comments. Oh, communications, I'm sorry, communications committee reports.
All right. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to make everyone aware, My Community Cares is having another Be Strong Parent Cafe tomorrow at A.B. Palmer Community Center from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. The theme for this one will be finding safety in an unsafe environment. So please, if you can, make sure that you support that event and be sure to register with Ms. Creisha Bennett with the same email information, creisha.bennett@vyjla.org. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones. I mean, not Jones, but Commissioner Young.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to share two things with my fellow commissioners and the public. One is that in December, the first green infrastructure erosion control project in Louisiana took place right here in Caddo Parish in District 4 in Highland Park, a badly eroding park that is now eroding much more slowly or maybe not at all. And we're going to have a big community tree planting there, hopefully later this month in January, weather permitting. It's going to maybe be frightfully cold, but we'll see. So I hope you'll at least drive by Highland Park. Gilbert Drive and Olive Street is one of the corners of the park, and take a look at it. You can see it from your car. It's pretty cool. And the second thing is I wanted to thank Animal Services for stepping up over the holidays and responding to the 3 different complaints that I got about dangerous dogs at large. One was a pack of 4 pit bulls by South Highlands Elementary School, one was a pack of 2 pit bulls by St. Mark's Elementary School, and one was a bunch of huskies in my neighborhood in Highland. I will later this winter or spring be asking you to consider making our spay-neuter ordinance permanent. I think we can all see the need for that. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I want to make it clear that on the conversation earlier about the lighthouse, I don't go to any of the churches or institutions that were identified in any of these programs. I was simply going by what that group said that they needed. They identified Galilee as one of their priority sites in their next phase, and so that's solely what my advocacy was about. Everybody knows I go to Peaceful Rest. If I'm not at Peaceful Rest, I'm at Word of God. If I'm not at Word of God, I'm somewhere online. I don't do the whole church thing. My belief is if it's a good idea for the community, just support it. It shouldn't matter who goes to what church. If you have a principled position, stand on that principled position today and every day. So that's just wanted to make sure that we put that out there and clear that up. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. And I would just like to add too, we on this picking winners and losers based upon your own personal interests, we have a global interest in trying to provide safety for our citizens, and it's important that that we look at it from that perspective, not who came first or who came last. There's a need. We got involved in several very, very dire climate condition situations where there could have a lot of people could have died because of the lack of services that we had to provide a place of shelter for them, the city and the parish, and they depend upon us. And I think that we need to be a bit more open-minded about things of that nature, because they elect us to the leadership, and that's what we should do, and not be petty about some of these things. Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you again. And as I would say that this was an organization that came to the parish to ask for help. They had already did a study. They had already selected churches, and we should not impose our beliefs into their program if they've already done the study. Second of all, if we're really talking about the benefits and the goodwill of the people of making sure that we help them, it doesn't have to be a part of the greenhouse program. It could be a standalone program where you sit those generators out there at the church, like Mario was talking about, stand by, go get them, hook them up to the church, and then provide the church as a lighthouse on a generator type lighthouse. It doesn't have to be a part of what the other organization was doing. It could be a standalone, this is what we're doing as the parish, if you feel that wholeheartedly about it. I mean, there's been things that come up before us many times in my 13 years. I might not have really went along, or I went along with what the private organization was doing, but then I said, what can we do as commissioners in other areas and supplement it? So, I mean, you just have to think outside the box. And to me, if it's a part of a program that somebody else is doing, we should not use our political powers or political beliefs and impose on top of what they're trying to do and reorganize the numbers that they said that they want to do, or the churches that they want to do, and do our own program. If that's the case, I mean, the ideal is good, but I just don't want us to say, okay, y'all got this program going, and I want to put my church in, or somebody else want to put their church in, and supersede the churches that they had already talked about putting in. Now, I've already received text messages back today that says that I was right. So I'm not sitting here and debating about right or wrong of the program, but if the people that you really are trying to help, utilize the parish dollars to do a standalone program, so when something does happen, they're covered. That's all I'm saying. And not impose this organization to say, you got to change it because I done this over here. I don't want to be a part of that. I've never been a part of that. I've always voted a separate way on that kind of stuff. So it's nothing that's I'm inconsistent with. And if anybody can tell you in 13 years, I've been very consistent on what I've been doing. Thank you.
Stubbornness.
Could be on some.
Okay, that conclude our comments. Okay, Mr. Clerk?
We have no requests for citizens' comments later.
Move to
either.
adjourn.
Second.